The consumer may not come back as quickly as they would like, but still, when American Express started, reached the single-digit mark, enough was enough. And it's a great company, a great brand. I don't leave home without it.
You're still holding it today, even though it's come back quite a bit?
We're still showing it in our reports, yes.
And looking at the credit markets, do you think they've really fully recovered, or just pieces of it? For example, you mentioned small businesses, and consumers still seem to be having a hard time getting credit.
Yes, it's become much more complex to get credit. I think the system is still in gridlock in many ways, especially with mortgages, home mortgages, and the backlogs. But it's loosening up now. It's loosening up. We have debt from AmeriCredit securitization that company's been able to now do a securitization recently. So the credit markets are thawing out now, which is essential.
For individual investors, should they be picking individual stocks, or should they allow people like you to babysit their money for them?
Well,
I'm serving this up to you. You've got a good record, so I don't mind.
It's a great song. You popped it right up there for me. I appreciate that.
You've earned
it. Yeah. I tell everyone the same. When I tell potential investors that they should look at a mutual fund the way I would look at a company, because we do this 24/7, and I don't know how anyone can look at individual companies on a part-time basis, especially if they don't have anything to do with the companies. And I wouldn't think of performing surgery on someone, even if I thought I was a talented amateur at it. So, and I think it's for a well-balanced life, I think it's better for most to just stick to maybe 4 or 5 rules of investing. You want to find someone who has had a good paper trail of investing, a record of someone who's done very well.
So that's one of your simple
That's one
rules.
paper trail, right? 2, you want to make sure that whoever you're going to entrust has a proven level of honesty and integrity, so you don't have to worry. 3, you have to make sure that you have to have a basic comprehension of the strategy the person's using, so that when times get tough, as they inevitably do, you're not going to get shaken loose at the worst possible time. And then you have to assure yourself that there's a level playing field. Everyone has to be on the same side of the fence, so to speak. That everyone should do well together. Or if they get hurt, if the person loses money for you, that person should get financially hurt. And that's in the category of eating your own cooking. And I just don't understand how anyone can invest with someone who doesn't have most of their family net worth involved in what they're doing for paying customers.
Let me just read some of the things you said about banks and brokers, just to not to overly flatter you, but this was before the stuff really hit the fan, why you weren't in banks when others thought, gee, these are great bargains, they're cheap, value investing. You avoided most banks. Well, we didn't know how to value them. It's impossible to know what they owned and who they owed. Let me give you an example. Collateralized debt obligations, squared. You have to read hundreds of thousands of pages of documents to get at the underlying assets. Then you said about Morgan and Bear Stearns. A bargain? I don't know the answer. Look at AIG. 5 years ago, you could read AIG's report on derivatives. Maybe it was a paragraph. It didn't tell you anything. You had to just assume these people knew what they were doing. Today, you can read 10 pages on it and still not know what is going on unless you go through the underlying collateral. It's almost impossible. Very good advice. Very good observation.
I've learned the hard way. Trust but verify.
So what has this market taught you about risk?
Well,
that you really
as much
didn't know
as I
before?
thought was out there, it was worse than I expected. It just reinforced that you have to expect the unexpected, and you have to be positioned for it. You do have to ignore the crowd, and for many investors, you can't get up with the greed of the moment and the envy or the fear, because you'll end up making bad decisions. And people are going to relearn the basics of business again, that there are rainy days, right? That leverage is a two-edged sword, that you can get very wealthy slowly, and you do not have to take excessive risks.
So the bottom line is emotions are your enemy. If you feel good, don't. If you feel bad, do it.
That is exactly right. My best buying days are when you have that real queasy feeling in your stomach, and the day that you're 100% confident about something is probably the day before you're going to die a financial death. So,
so what is your bold prediction for the future?
I am agnostic about the markets in general. I'm hoping that the environment stays reasonably tough as consumers and companies and countries rebuild their balance sheets. And this is a great environment for an investor, for a value-based stock picker, security picker. And it's never been better. I can't think of well, of course, the beginning of the year was outstanding. It just doesn't get any better if you had the cash to buy.
Even more outstanding 2 months later.
And then 2 months later, right. And, well, I've always, I must admit, I've always suffered from premature accumulation. So I've always had that, I've always bought too early, and I've felt the pain of buying too early. But the trick is not running out of cash.
Right. Well, it reminds me of a story about Warren Buffett. We did a story in the late 60s on Buffett. He's relatively unknown, but this manager had gotten out of the market. Well, it turned out it was a high. So 5 years later, 1974, world's coming to an end back then. And so he went back to Omaha and asked what he was doing now. And being a politically incorrect person that he is, he said he felt like, looking at all the bargains out there, he said he felt like a sex-starved maniac in a harem with all the bargains. And so, in effect, you're saying there's still a lot of good stuff out there.
There are good investments made. Investments in the right equities should do reasonably well over the next decade.
Bruce, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.